Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula says the Administrative Adjudication of Road Traffic Offences Act, I think we'll call it AARTO, will allow road offenders to challenge fines. The act was signed into law by President Cyril Ramaphosa. It's now being published in the Government Gazette. It was actually published in the Government Gazette, get this, 2 years ago. When's it supposed to come into force? Midnight last night. It aims to curb road fatalities. It introduces the demerit system. In other words, you could lose your license. And Mbalula says the rollout of the AARTO system will be implemented in stages.
Moving forward, the AARTO rollout ensures that infringers do not have to be a burden to the courts with some of these infringements. This also sees the introduction of driver rehabilitation programs for habitual infringers, where infringers who have their licenses cancelled can attend rehabilitation programs before being allowed back in the driving fold. This shows that the AARTO is not just about punishment, but has intentions to ensure compliance and change of road user behavior. In order to sensitize the public to the changes brought by this AARTO legislation, serious considerations have been given to educate and empower the public on the manner in which this law will impact on road users. It is therefore prudent that this rollout be introduced in phases to ensure that all metros and local municipalities fully adhere to the legislation, with lessons learned from the operational jurisdictions of Johannesburg and Tshwane used as a yardstick for maximum impact.
Stefanie Fick is the head of legal at the organisation Undoing Tax Abuse. Stefanie, good afternoon to you. I mean, there's a lot of sort of, pageantry, a lot of music about the fact that this law now comes into force, but does it actually mean anything? Is it actually going to change anything right now?
Can I just start by saying that the Act was actually, they talk about this rollout, but the Act was still not gazetted. So in terms of what is the practical implications, is the rest of the country goes on as they've always done. So AARTO is not applicable in the rest of the country, and in Joburg and Tshwane, we still deal with the old AARTO Amendment Act. And what we've seen today is really what we've said right from the start, is that it seems that they are not ready. The Act itself was signed by the President in August of 2019. And now we heard that, the demerit system in terms of this rollout plan will only come into effect in July of 2022. So it really is systematically, I think it shows that they are just not ready to implement the system. And will the system really help? In all fairness, is there something wrong with the system? Probably not. Does it work in a developed country? Probably it does. But will it work in a developing country like South Africa, where we have totally different economic circumstances? I don't think so. Visible policing. I think we should start with some simple plans in order to catch the drunken driver and the reckless and negligent driver, and make simple changes in order to maybe affect better use of the roads by our motorists.
There's a whole lot of legal technicalities to this, but in the end, I mean, the real problem is that all of the computer systems that catch people breaking the law, and basically every single camera shot that catches someone who's going faster than they should, all needs to be linked to itself. Now, otherwise, you could have someone who spends their entire life breaking the speed limit in one municipality and having no punishment, and someone who does it in another municipality and being punished each time and losing their license after doing it, say, just 8 times. The point I'm trying to make is, I don't know if we have the IT geeks who can put all of this together.
It is a problem, and you're hitting the nail on the head, because it's an administrative process, and it's a very elaborate, there's various hoops you need to jump through, and they gave us sort of a presentation of this system. And you're right, that if that doesn't work, the system is going to fail. If Inatis doesn't work properly, that's the database with all motorists' information. If we can't be given the guarantee that the information on there is 100% or even 98% correct, then you're going to have a failure of AARTO that is heavily reliant, apparently, on all these electronic and IT systems.
You sort of suggested that it may not work in South Africa. I'm not entirely sure why you believe that. There is plenty of evidence that a demerit system has worked in many other countries. They've brought down road deaths. I mean, road deaths, for example, in the United Kingdom are at historically low levels. They've had a demerit system for a long time. I realize that we have all sorts of issues as a country, but if a demerit system works for British drivers, if it works for drivers in so many other countries, why wouldn't it work for South African drivers?
I think maybe to answer it this way, the UK is a developed country. South Africa is still developing. We've got a young democracy. We are currently struggling with the devastating effects of state capture, with the sheer corruption that just ate at our young democracy. And I think we're struggling with a lot of things. I think we're moving in the right direction. We are starting to see some accountability. But I think we are a long way from saying that we've solved all our problems, and we don't have to. I just think that in a country where you struggle with an unemployment rate, you are struggling with a society that is faced with, like I said, just the devastating effects of corruption, that on the one hand, I want to ask, why is this a priority? If you can solve deaths on our roads with simpler methods, without wasting an enormous amount of time. We do not have the budget that a country like the UK has in order to make sure that a system like AARTO that can work is implemented in South Africa. It is unfortunately taking us an enormous amount of time to just try and make AARTO work. This started in 2008 in two of the biggest metros in South Africa, and it didn't really work. The demerit system that was part of AARTO, that is in fact part of the AARTO Act currently enacted in Joburg and Pretoria, was never rolled out because they realized that there's problems with the system. There's also not a problem with trying to make a system perfect. But at some point you need to realize that, you know what, maybe we are just not ready to implement a system like this. And let's look at alternatives. There's an enormous amount of alternatives that I think are better suited for South Africa's circumstances.
Stefanie, I hear your argument. I worry that I think some people are going to hear your argument and they're going to hear it in this way. They're going to hear it as you're suggesting that maybe South African drivers are different to other drivers. I don't think there's evidence of that. They're going to hear it in a way that suggests perhaps that South African lives are not as important. The point, let me put the point another way. Isn't it a good thing that someone who consistently breaks the laws on our roads, drives dangerously, breaks the speed limit, drives under the influence, does it consistently, is a danger? Isn't it a good thing that legally they are prevented from ever driving again, unless they go through a rehabilitation program, as the Minister explained today? What on earth could be wrong with that? Now, I understand the issues of enforcement. I would agree that the chances of enabling corruption with police officers and all the rest and more than one cold drink are there. I agree with you. But don't we need to start somewhere? And doesn't this actually work?
Can I say that AARTO is not applicable on a drunk driver? Because AARTO is an administrative system. So it is sort of focused on dealing with minor offences. So the AARTO system is for the person that parks illegally. It is really for your minor offences. A drunk driver will still go to court, will still face direct imprisonment, because rightly so. But who's going to catch the drunk driver? Not a camera next to the road, not AARTO administrative system. It's going to take visible policing. It's going to take a traffic officer stopping and having regular, you know, what do you call it? There goes the word. But, you know, stopping your reckless and negligent driver. Stop the person that is speeding on our highways. It's not AARTO that's going to catch them. AARTO is really is trying in principle in order to, and we've asked this, you know, we need training. We need to instill a responsibility in young drivers. To say that when I get behind the wheel of a car, I have a responsibility. You need to instill that in children right from the start, before they even start driving. That, you know, you are proud to be behind a car and you have a responsibility to make sure that your own life is important, but also those of others sharing the road. But AARTO, and they say that AARTO is sort of wants to instill that. In other words, if you're going to stop the person from parking illegally, that hopefully will also not drive drunk. And maybe that is true. Maybe that is true. But the road deaths on our road is, I think it is, it's that.
Stefanie,
and it gets.
I'm afraid of being pushed for time. We're going to have to leave it there. I do appreciate it. Won't be the last conversation we have about this, I'm certain. Stefanie Fick, Advocate Stefanie Fick, is the head of legal at OUTA.